On a hot summer day, June 20th, 1789 to be exact, the members of the Third Estate were making their way to a meeting of the States General. As the government failed to call it in the States earlier, the coffers of the state were deeply depressed. This was difficult for those pushing for reform as much simply focused on finances. The Third Estate criticized the First Estate as they could have no knowledge as to starvation, oppression, and indignation. Likewise, the nobility simply lived off the hard labors of the Third Estate. The Third Estate was excited, however, to see reform, largely due to the appointment of Necker, the finance minister, and a sympathizer to their cause. What they weren't expecting to find was a locked door. Immediately accusing the royalty of terrible actions preventing the Third Estate from participating, they headed to the tennis courts, asserting that if the government didn't want them at their own party, they could throw their own. It was at this point that they vowed to work for a new constitution and a new way of life.
Why am I here? I'm incorruptible. Roll call! Saint-Just!
Here. Why am I here? This is my life. I like to tear reform school.
Herot!
Here. Why am I here? Saint-Just needs a babysitter. If we left him alone, he might blow up the whole country.
Culotte! Here.
Theater got boring.
Today we are gathering to discuss a new law. Thanks to Crouton for bringing it to my attention.
Snaps for Crouton.
This is not legally wrong. This is the Committee for Public Safety. You know what's not funny? Revolution.
Nazi's the coolest thing since Birkenstocks. So you're a hipster now? Shut it, old man. Does it bother me that people keep asking if I'm the angel of death? Yeah, it does. There's nothing badass about angel. Why couldn't I be the destroyer of death or the harbinger of death? What exactly is this law anyways?
The law of 22 Prairial.
Wow, thanks so much for that answer. I learned a lot.
This is huge. Anyone convicted or suspected of anti-revolutionary activity gets turned over to the government, like always. But instead of giving those blasphemous traitors rights, we don't give them any. Also, there will be only one punishment: death.
I love it. No one can reign innocently. We shouldn't even try. Who invited this kid? I am integral to this committee. You're just eye candy. Awkward.
You're all acting like idiots. Dear God! Do I have to do everything myself?
I think Robespierre is on his period.
Now, does anyone have any candidates for the guillotine?
There was a kid in the street who thought that green was cooler than blue.
How unpatriotic! Off with his head.
How about the old woman who said she was ambivalent about the revolution?
Oh, traitorous! Off with her head!
Here comes the terror. What will this law do? Basically, if we don't like your face, we can cut it off.
The law is crucial to the triumph of virtue. Justice must be enforced, or it cannot exist at all.
The law of 22 Prairial is basically Robespierre's way of flipping off the legal system. And actually, Prairial is Robespierre's way of flipping off the Latin calendar. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to see it. How do I feel about this law? How do you say trippin' in English?
This is gonna be fun.
Almost 1,600 people were executed in the 6 weeks after this law was passed, compared to the less than 1,100 people in the previous 14 months. It made it completely illegal to question or challenge the government or any of its leaders, leading the Committee of Public Safety to essentially become a dictatorship. Robespierre wouldn't be queen bee forever. Next week you will see the downfall of Robespierre. Precipitated by the extreme measures being taken by the Committee of Public Safety, Robespierre's extreme accusations of many members of whatever ruling body was present at the time led to a sentiment against him. His final act was a speech that suggested he had the names of people engaged in anti-revolutionary activities. However, he failed to present these names in the same speech, instead going back home to create what would become his final speech. This speech was strongly worded, condemning the Thermidorian revolt, yet his words were drowned out by the jeers of those present in the convention. He hid in the convention, but his orders for his arrest were too strong, and as he was being arrested, he was shot in the jaw. A man who once held so many people entrapped with his words was now speechless. He was executed on July 28, 1794. He was not allowed trial and barely allowed anything to stem the blood from his injuries. As he once said, "Pity is treason." Additionally, you will see a rise of a new star. Young, strong, and sassy, a new player will step onto the stage. From a young age, a boy named Napoleon Bonaparte showed an excellence in leadership and military force. Due to his skill, he was connected with Paul Barras, a member of the Directory, whose coup d'état would lead him to extreme power. He was in fact the person to introduce Napoleon and his wife Josephine. His rise would be increased due to his successes in both domestic and foreign military issues. Perhaps what moment gilded him in fame was when he broke up protesters in Paris. With just a whiff of grape shot, he was propelled into the limelight of France. We will see if he is born apart or born to party.